What is going on, everybody? My name is Kneeckoh, and welcome to the Enter the Chat Gaming Podcast, the weekly gaming podcast where me and Rico here get together and talk all things video games. How we doing, Rico?
We're doing good, man. We're doing very good.
Your freaking background, I can't take you seriously.
Enjoying life in the Bahamas. Had to get out of the wintry wonderlands.
Yeah, is that right?
Yep.
Well, like I said, we are a weekly gaming podcast where we are on podcast services as well as YouTube in a video format. We're talking about the Game Awards. We wanted to do this earlier. But we had busy schedules, and then on top of busy schedules, we had internet issues because there were storms going through the area, so the internet was not cooperating. So today is the day that we're finally going to talk about it because it was not what I expected. Honestly, okay, first off, before we get into any of the announcements, the awards, anything like that, this thing is too damn long.
Yeah, like if it's gonna be that long, it needs to be earlier. But for us, it was 8 o'clock at night. Didn't get done till like sometime after 11. We were just both like drained after it.
It's just so long, and there's so much filler in it, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's just too much.
They need to either like dial it down or like break it up somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. But aside from that, I think we should break it up. I think we should do awards first and then talk about the announcements, because I'm sure we'll have more to say in regards to the announcements. So I have a list I brought up here. It's on, I think it's Push Square. I'll link it in the description below for everybody that wants to check it out. So first off, we're going to talk about the Player's Choice, which I'm not surprised by this one at all. And that was Halo Infinite. I don't think Halo Infinite's campaign made the cut, like with the deadline for it, but the multiplayer, I think, allowed it to sneak in because the multiplayer released earlier. And I wonder if they did that for the Game Awards or just to like take the wind out of the sails of Call of Duty and Battlefield. But
I mean, probably.
I think it could be a little of both, but ultimately they did win Player's Choice. And after playing the campaign, like I started it this week, and so good. It's fantastic, especially as someone who's never played Halo. Like, I'm invested. I'm going, and I'm loving it. It's super fun.
I was gonna say you're invested, even though like you haven't really gone through any of like the lore build up to this campaign.
Yeah, I'm enjoying every minute of it. It's freaking good. So, and the multiplayer is it literally is the best first person shooter I've played this year. Obviously it's got some hiccups here and there in terms of progression and all that stuff, but they're fixing it, they're working on it. So, and with the quickness that they're working on it, I can't complain. Next up, we'll cover, the blah blah blah, the non-important ones, the ones we don't really care, Best esports event, League Worlds, best esports coach. I don't even know. K Koma? I don't know.
Kim Jong-gyun, I think is how it's pronounced.
I don't know. I believe their username is K Koma. Best esports team, Natus Vincier. Best esports athlete, Simple. Best esports game, League of Legends. I'm not super surprised by that. That's not a very strong category. When you have something like League, it's not really up for debate.
Yeah, even though unless you strictly follow, even though you don't see League too much, like in major news or anything, it's still big as hell.
And most anticipated game was not a shock to me. I mean, there were some strong contenders in there, right? It was Eldon Ring, it was Horizon Forbidden West, it was God of War Ragnarok, some big titles for next year, Breath of the Wild 2, and it was Eldon Ring. Second year in a row that's taken the cake, yeah.
Which I don't know if that's ever happened before, but it is very impressive nonetheless.
And I mean, I'm not a Souls fan, and I'm excited for this game.
Same, like even though you got games like God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West on here, Elden Ring, it looks so different from what we've had out of Souls games that just has me very interested.
Same. Let's see this list here. This one surprised me, okay? Best indie debut. And I don't know. This one caught me off guard.
Had me happy.
It was 12 minutes. Death's Door, Kina. There was, what else was there? Was Inscription in there? I think it was Inscription as well.
Oh, so you're okay. So you're talking about best indie game in general, because there's best indie game and then there's best debut indie game. But
Well,
Kino
they
won
both
both
won
of
it.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kano won both of it.
And I'm
Which,
like,
like, the debut one,
I
the
was
debut one,
just,
I'm not surprised of.
I'm just
But
so shocked.
out of the, yeah, I mean, once you play it, like, the combat isn't anything crazy, but it's more so just like the story and a little bit of a journey you go through with all these, like, basically sort of helping all these different characters and the underlying message of dealing with loss and like moving on, finding peace, all that stuff. It's actually very much enjoyable.
I,
And visually, it's just beautiful.
I was just so surprised off of the success of things like 12 Minutes and Death's Door, like how like well received those were, especially being on Game Pass and having more people access them. I was just like, wow, that's something.
Oh yeah, like I'm happy Key won, but I'm certain like it was still very close, especially with like 12 minutes in Death's Door.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I assumed Death's Door would take it. Um, best content creator was Dream. We talked about that in our like breakdown video, and we both just said Dream because we didn't know anyone else, and we heard of Dream's content, so it wasn't super surprising that Dream took the cake.
Yeah,
Best multiplayer game was It Takes Two, and that shocked me as well.
That surprised me as well because like I when I was thinking multiplayer games, I'm thinking of stuff like massive multiplayer games or like stuff that's basically just more than two people. So games like Back for Blood, Knockout City, and Monster Hunter Rise, New World, stuff like that. We thought it was going to go to New World. And I
Yes,
thought New World had a strong case for this, but I can see why It Takes Two won. Like
yeah, I want to play the game.
it's
More
such
I
a
hear
well
about it,
done.
I want to play it, but I need the
Same.
co-op partner to play it. You know.
Hello.
Is it crossplay?
I don't. It should be. I would think. I don't know.
I would also think, but I don't know for certain.
I'd have to check on that then.
But fighting game, we both agreed on this one when we talked about it, was Guilty Gear.
Yeah, like out of all the games that were in that category, like it was basically no competition. It was going to be Guilty Gear no matter what.
It's usually a weak category unless something like Smash or Mortal Kombat comes out that year.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not the strongest category. Well, this year it was, and sometimes you'll have like a few heavy hitters. The closest one that would have came to it probably would have been Demon Slayer, but that's not really like a true like fighting game. Not something you'll see like in like tournaments or Evo or anything like that. Guilty Gear is like a tried and true fighting game. You're gonna see it at tournaments for years to come and everything like that. So no surprise at that one.
The next one kind of took me off guard. Best RPG was Tales of Arise.
That one surprised me too, but then again, kind of figure, the one game like out of all these that neither of us have played or are familiar with is going to be the winner. So that probably tells us like these Tales games are probably much better than what we thought. I thought it would have gone to at least Cyberpunk. Like Scarlet Nexus was my
I was wondering.
Would have thought Cyberpunk would have get it
because we were talking about the the resurgence in the last podcast of Cyberpunk and how people are starting to play it a whole lot more. I figured Cyberpunk might have taken it just because of that.
Yeah, same. But it's like Tales of Rise just comes out of nowhere, and I guess it shows what we know. It's just a much better RPG than what was on that list, and it's a strong list nonetheless.
Best action adventure game was Metroid Dread. Doesn't really surprise me. That game was so well received. It was what everybody wanted out of Metroid, obviously aside from Metroid Prime. But like as a side, a 3D side-scrolling Metroid, like that's what people wanted.
Yeah, pretty much. And very impressive win for Metroid Dread considering what was going up against. I mean, you got Resident Evil Village, which was sort of like somewhat bringing back the action aspect of Resident Evil, but still keeping a nice balance with the horror. Psychonauts 2, which you've like sung its praises about a whole lot. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, even though like Ratchet and Clank game stories aren't that well done, they're just fun as hell, like action games to play with all the different gadgets and weapons you get to use. And Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, I actually was in the middle of playing it before we started this, and it's such a fun game. It's such a good game. I'm loving the story, the characters, all of it.
It was just I kind of had a feeling Metroid was going to go home with at least one of these things it was nominated for, and I'm just glad it got the recognition. Because like normally you
Same.
don't see Nintendo games up there unless you get stuff like a Mario Odyssey or a Breath of the Wild. You don't see a lot of Nintendo stuff being represented outside of like the best family game category.
Right. Hopefully this sort of gives like a bit more of a kick in the ass to now there's going to be more steam going into the development and finishing of Metroid 4.
Best action game. I was surprised by this. We thought it'd be Deathloop. It's Returnal.
That one surprised me as well, honestly.
Like I don't know what happened. Like like I don't know. Like I don't have words honestly for the situation.
Same. Like, don't get me wrong, Returnal is like it is like a really great game. The whole like sci-fi horror like theme and aspect to it is really interesting and thought-provoking. Really throws your mind through a swivel. All these different like guns and encounters you go through, and then trying to manage your runs. It's all really well done. Didn't quite think it beat out Deathloop though.
Yeah, I don't know. It just caught me so off guard.
To be fair, a lot of these wins caught us off guard.
Yes, that is true. That is very true. Best VR game, we said Resident Evil 4 because that was the only game that we had heard so much about on the list, and it did win. We were right on the money there.
Yeah, it made the most sense. I was just hearing like nothing but like positive things as soon as it came out, which is very good considering how like old of a game it is, but it still stays like very true to it for like a modern iteration of it. Even though it's not like super modern, it's just basically like Resident Evil 4 but in VR.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it feels and looks.
Innovation and accessibility. I said it was going to be Forza Horizon 5, and you ended up agreeing with me after I came in with all of the information. And they even said some stuff during the Game Awards that I was unfamiliar with, like the fact that they're adding like a sign language interpreter for people that can't hear for the cutscenes and stuff. Like that's coming in a future update and like all that stuff. Like that's kind of crazy, the amount of work that's going into accessibility.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that alone. I don't think any like game has ever done something like that before. I mean, sure, like pretty much all games have subtitles and stuff you can turn on, but to have like actual sign language interpretation, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I thought it was very interesting. But that ended up winning, and I'm glad that ended up winning. That also won, what was it, the best sports game?
Yep, but well, let's see. It won best sports game. And it also won best audio design. That
Yes,
one
it
kind
did.
of surprised me as well.
I'm not super when you play it and like the transition from driving on different terrains versus driving on water, the weather effects, the environment, the sounds of the vehicles, the radio stations that you listen to, like it's if you play it, you understand a whole lot more why it won that.
Right, I get like for me, I feel like it would have been originally between Returnal and Deathloop because Returnal's sound design is just so well done for just about like sort of similar reasons to why Forza run. But I mean, I guess in the end, Forza just did it better.
Yeah. Best community support, that was won by Final Fantasy 14 Online as well as best ongoing game. And I thought Fortnite had best ongoing game because it's Fortnite,
Same. It's Fortnite. It breaks the internet like every other week.
Yeah, they add something new and the internet blows up, and I figured Fortnite would just be the clear winner. But I had a slight feeling with the, how positive the community is in Final Fantasy 14. The new Endwalker DLC came out, like all of that stuff is being so well received. So I knew if it wasn't Fortnite, it was gonna be Final Fantasy.
I was gonna say I've been seeing like as soon as the Endwalker DLC came out, queues to actually like get in to play it were in the thousands. Like people would be getting on and they'd be like queue 9,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I'll give like props to No Man's Sky for being in this category for being a game that was a huge letdown when it came out just because it was lacking a bunch of stuff that was originally promised to now being like an actually somewhat like beloved game with a cult following now. I'll give it props for that.
I agree. No Man's Sky has been just one of the best comeback stories of any game.
Very true.
Best mobile game, Genshin Impact. I think it was kind of a weak category. I figured it'd be Genshin or it would be League of Legends Wild Rift.
Yeah, and honestly, like when I took another look at the category, I think we picked like Pokemon Unite originally, but then after I thought about it some more, I'm just like, Genshin's probably gonna win because Genshin, anytime they have like a new big event or drop a new character, it always ends up trending on Twitter every single time.
Yeah, it's a very popular game, which is weird because it's such a gotcha game. But
It is a very
we
gotcha
voted
game.
Pokemon Unite simply because we enjoyed it so much. But like I have not gone back to it, and I've not heard great things from the community that are still playing it. Like they break the game every time something comes out. You know, it's just not in a good state. So it's not super surprising that one didn't win. What I think could have won had it come out early enough this year is Rocket League Sideswipe. I've been playing it nonstop. It's so fun. I am
Still gotta download it.
absolutely addicted to it. It's I didn't know how they were gonna bring Rocket League to mobile because it'd just be like weird to control normal Rocket League. But I knew they were working on it, and then to see the sideways kind of Rocket League perspective, it's so cool. It's way simpler than normal Rocket League, but there's still that level of depth and car control that you get. It's fantastic. I highly recommend picking it up. It's a great game.
I'm gonna have to remember to download it.
Where are we? Best indie game we already talked about. That was Kena. Games for Impact was Life is Strange True Colors.
Which that one I can get. Like the Life is Strange games is like games that I know a lot of people can really relate to, or really relate to like the stories they do. So that one doesn't surprise me a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Best performance was the one we were hoping for. It was Maggie Robertson
Yes,
as Lady Dimitrescu, and God bless it, I was so happy.
it was the only right answer. Now, don't get me wrong. Jason E. Kelly and I'm sorry for butchering this. Ozuyama Akaga. I know I butchered the hell out of that. Loved both their performances as Colt and Juliana in Deathloop, but to give a performance that awakens a mommy kink in everybody, in every single man, woman, and child on the internet, that deserves some kind of award.
Oh my God, it was. Yes, I agree. There's no other way around it. It's just God bless Lady Dimitrescu.
God bless maybe
Best score in music went to Near Replicant. I've not played the Near games, so I can't really say anything to it.
Now I do have it, and I have like played it a bit, but I haven't played it in a long time. So like now I'm feeling like, oh, do I need to dive back in now and listen to them, really focus on the music? Because Deathloop has great music that gives it that nice like 70s 80s feel to it, which is sort of like the theme they go for. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy music, yeah, you got your obvious licensed music because it's Guardians of the Galaxy, but then there's enough like original stuff that had me thinking, I was like, this is some good stuff. I think this could honestly win, but nope, Nier just comes out of nowhere with, I guess, some real tear jerking stuff.
I guess. Best art direction went to Deathloop, which I think is good. It really did have a great art style, good
Oh yeah,
style with the comic book cutscenes and then the in-game art. It was really good. Best narrative went to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which surprised me. But after I keep hearing you talk about it, it gets less and less
it's
surprising.
it's such a good story and narrative, and really like it's more Guardians greatness. Like I feel like I'm playing through like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie or series. You really get in touch with a lot of these characters and the sort of like journey they're going on. Yeah, you basically feel like you're one of the Guardians when you're doing this,
Mm-hmm.
because there's the story that's going on, and then there's also like the various narrative options you can choose that does affect how certain situations go about. So you you and a person could be playing Guardians of the Galaxy side by side, but you'll have different events that go in different ways depending on like what your narrative choices are. Which it makes me very curious. I enjoy it a lot, and it does sort of like give that itch of maybe wanting to do a second playthrough to try for a different outcome.
I need to pick it up. I should have picked it up
You
on Black Friday while it was on sale, but I
should have.
didn't, and
Yes, you
I'm
should have.
kicking myself for it. Best game direction, Deathloop. I think everybody kind of knew that was gonna happen.
Yep. Just with
It
the
was,
unique,
yeah, it's unique. That's all you can really say. It's so unique.
because like when it first came out and like you sort of like listen to how it like plays and stuff, you think it's a roguelike, but then you actually get into play it and everything, and you actually learn what the game's all about. It is far from being like just another roguelike type of game.
Yeah, it's the way they were able to have that story continue through each loop versus just resetting every time was so well done. It was so unique. The power-ups were super good. Being able to work to bring those stuff like your guns and your loadouts with you through each loop, it was just a fantastic game all around.
Yeah, I
Um,
highly love it.
the big one, which caught us off guard.
It caught. I'm pretty sure it caught everyone off guard.
Game of the year
Game of the year
is It Takes Two.
It Takes Two wins Game of the Year, beating out Resident Evil Village, Psychonauts 2, Metroid Dread, Deathloop, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Hell,
I don't know how that happened. I don't know if Deathloop was played that much, to be honest. I think that's what it comes down to.
maybe it's just it takes. Like I get it, like It Takes Two like came out earlier in the year, so a lot more people have had a chance to play it, but it seems like the biggest like underdog victory out of all these categories.
My thought is, okay, because Deathloop was mainly a PlayStation exclusive, all right? It's available on PC, I believe, on like Steam or something.
Right.
But I'm wondering just how many people didn't play it because they didn't have access to a PS5, and if that was the undoing for Deathloop's Game of the Year opportunity.
It's very hard to say because I always forget, like with these categories, if they're 100% player voted or if there's an actual committee that votes with it as well.
Yeah. I don't know. It caught me so off guard because we both were so dead certain in our predictions video that Deathloop was going to be the Game of the Year without question. Like, because this year, when I think of the big game, like the God of War, the Spider-Man, it's Deathloop.
Right. And I think, like, to be fair, like, from what I've seen on It Takes Two, like, seeing all, like, the videos and stuff and the gameplay, it just looks like such an enjoyable time and such, like, an interesting way to portray, like, how, like, divorce affects a family, not just, like, the actual people going through it, but then any other family that's a part of it, in other words, the daughter. So I think it comes down to like a lot of people, one, just wanting like a fun cooperative game to play with like their spouses or friends, and two, just some people being able to relate to that type of story a lot.
Yeah, it was so surprising. I'm glad it won because it was such like a niche, interesting game. And being that it won is just kind of crazy.
And it's kind of funny because before we used to talk about how like, we weren't really getting like any big single player games anymore, and now we have like big booms of big AAA single player games coming out. Then it sort of came down to we haven't had too many like any in a long time cooperative big narrative driven games, and now we do with this, and it wins Game of the Year this year.
Yeah. So that ends the conclusion to the awards, and it was the thing with the awards. I almost wish this is how they did it. Okay, they just did the awards, right, and then they did the announcements. Like, make it two separate things.
Yeah, or at least like they gotta break it up like in some different way, because I get they tried to cut it down with not doing like a big thing for every award. Some of them was just like Jeff like on stage and he would go through a quick categories that won, which I think is fine. Go ahead and keep doing that, but they need to do like something else. Maybe like cut down on like some of like the performances, maybe from the orchestras or like any of the extra stuff you have going on. Maybe like dial that stuff down a little bit. Because when it opened up, that first song, I was like, Jesus Christ, this first hour is about to be just this song.
But speaking of the announcements, we're going to go through the list of the announcements and talk about those as well, because there was a lot. And there's definitely some things to talk about in regards to some of these.
I was going to say, now there were quite a few announcements that definitely interest me or got me like a little bit hyped up, but I feel like the announcements prior, this could be like through default of Jeff maybe, I feel like it was kind of overhyped.
I agree.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, there was some cool stuff shown and everything, but I think it was like through an interview that was posted on Twitter where it was making it sound like we were gonna have like a bunch of like Eldon Ring like level like reveals or announcements and stuff like that.
I would say the only one that came close was the Star Wars game, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yes.
So first up on the list that I have on Polygon here is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We finally got gameplay for this, and I have some thoughts on this particular game. I like the characters, right? They showed some stuff, they were fighting the Flash in this trailer, and they were really showing off the I don't know, the personalities of the characters.
Personalities. They showed off a lot of like the traversal for each of the
And
characters and like their
that's what I
combat.
think looks fun. Each character really controls interestingly, and I like that. It looks like the mobility will be fun. The actual combat kind of looks sluggish, and it doesn't look as impactful and swift as the mobility does.
Right. Now, it doesn't have like a solid release date yet. It just says 2022. I think they're shooting for holidays. I can't remember. But like for all that could be stuff they can like tune up and like tighten a bit to where it looks more smooth.
It could
when
also
runs.
just be the fact that we were watching this during a live stream, and it could just be the fact that maybe this was like a 30 FPS trailer, something to that effect.
Yeah, anything you watch through a live stream is always going to be at lower quality. So sometimes I definitely recommend sometimes if you see a trailer in a live stream and you think it looks, not the best or a bit sluggish, I would wait to like find like a just normal video on YouTube afterwards, and then you'll get like a much better look at what it's like.
The other thing with this is I hope this isn't the Waller in game. Okay, the Amanda Waller that they brought out, like the actress that was playing her on stage, was just like it was like a Walmart brand Nick Fury.
I can't remember if I messaged it. I was like, this is just female Nick Fury, ain't it?
It was so weird. It was so weird. A lot of the acting stuff that they do is so weird during these events.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not the biggest fan of like some of that stuff.
Next up, like we were talking about, Star Wars Eclipse. This is going to be like what, an RPG style game?
Maybe. So the way it describes it is it's a game that has multiple playable characters and a branching story. So the way it's making
it's Quantum Dream, right? Isn't that Detroit Become Human?
Yes, it is. So does this mean is it going to be like a Detroit style Star Wars game, multiple characters, branching story paths? I can see that.
It's an interesting idea. It's not really what I want though from a Star Wars game.
Yeah, like I get like it can be done well, don't get me wrong, but this isn't what people are necessarily looking for.
I want a big open world Star Wars experience. That's what I want.
We want basically what is it? We want No Man's Sky, but make it Star Wars.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. So I'm excited to see what comes of this game, but I'm hesitant to get overhyped for it.
Yeah, I mean it's still more likely a long ways away. It doesn't even have like a release year yet, so as time goes on, we'll learn more about it. We'll definitely see actual gameplay and stuff, and if it really is gonna be like Star Wars Detroit's Become Human type of deal, but we just have to wait and see.
Indeed. The next one was one that I was not aware of at all. Wonder Woman is coming.
Now this one, out of DC characters, Wonder Woman I don't care a whole lot for. A Wonder Woman game, though, at first it didn't pique me, but then I saw it was being made by
Monolith.
It's Monolith, the same people who made Middle-earth: Shadow of War. And if you have not played that game, one, I recommend you go play it, because it's basically Lord of the Rings, Arkham Knight City.
The gameplay in it is very fun.
The gameplay is very fun. The Nemesis system is the biggest highlight out of that game that I always drew me back to it. So much so that I'm getting an itch to go back in and play it again. But to have them working on a Wonder Woman game, now I have much more curiosity going into it.
Yes, I seeing that Monolith is behind it. I am keen. I'm excited regardless because I like superhero games, but
right.
I'm very keen to see what comes of it. Next was Alan Wake 2, which I have not played Alan Wake. I'm not surprised that this announcement came since they had, the remaster this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say that kind of puts into perspective like why that remaster happened, and here's our answers, because now they're finally coming out with a sequel, which is going. I don't know if the first game was this, but it's going to be a survival horror game, so it should deliver on the scares, and we'll see what this Alan Wake 2 sequel really comes up with.
We saw more in Forspoken, which we saw at the PlayStation 5 reveal. So,
yes!
I mean, this game looks cool. I don't know if it's a game for me. We'll see. But it looks pretty cool.
I want to be the Avatar!
It does look like a fantasy Avatar game. Like, it's interesting.
very interesting. I mean, I just love how it looks. All the powers look absolutely insane. It's what I kind of expect of out of like a true fantasy game. Just all these like wild powers that just has you wondering. It's like, how the hell does that work?
Yeah.
Because it makes it look like you could just do absolutely anything, which I'm okay with.
Now, the next one on this list was one that was in the pre-show, which I did not watch, but I knew this was coming, and I'm excited for it as a big fan of Dead by Daylight. That is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game.
And
That's all I can say is I'm excited. As
yeah,
a horror fan, as like I literally have my my Funko Pop of Bubba from Texas Chainsaw Massacre sitting on my desk.
yeah, and it's made by the same people who made the Friday the 13th game. Which, if you haven't seen that game, it's Dead by Daylight-esque, but there's a lot more. It's a much larger map. There's a lot
Yes.
more like cooperation between players needed to basically survive. And playing as Jason just looks like a hell of a time, and I expect no less from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game.
The only issue I foresee with this game, and it's the same thing that you had problems with in Friday the 13th, and this is why Dead by Daylight's so successful, is that they give you the opportunity to play as multiple horror icons versus
Right.
these games focus on one character, and eventually that gameplay loop is going to get stale. Versus in Dead by Daylight or something like that, you can switch up which character you're playing, you can switch between, obviously in this game you're likely going to be able to play either survivor or killer, but the gameplay loop and the builds and all that stuff changes based on the player's preferences. Versus in games like this, you're stuck with the same thing over and over.
Right. I feel like with like if you're gonna do like a horror game based off of just one horror franchise, I think it needs to be like a single player like narrative game, as if you're playing through the movie itself, whether you're playing as like the killer or playing as a survivor trying to survive. I feel like it needs to be something like that.
I agree, because like Friday the 13th came out, it was successful for about a month. It was very popular for a month. Everybody wanted Jason Voorhees in Dead by Daylight. He was not there because of all the legal bullshit that goes on with that particular franchise.
Yeah.
But people wanted to play that killer. They played it for a month. Everybody was very excited. And then, it just kind of died slowly because, eventually you're going to get tired of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say like sure they try to like freshen it up by adding like the different variations of Jason that all had their own unique abilities and stuff, but that only does so much because in the end you're still just Jason.
Yep.
And that's
Next
coming
one.
from some and
Go
that's
ahead,
coming
go
from
ahead.
someone who no, I'm just gonna say, and that's coming from someone whose like favorite slasher is Jason from Friday the 13th.
Mine's Michael Myers. If they made a standalone Michael Myers game, I would get pretty excited.
Michael Myers is the runner-up for me.
Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is the next game, and the whole time we were watching that, we were like, is this gameplay or is this a cinematic? Like, we couldn't tell. And then afterwards, Keely was like, that was gameplay, and it's unfucking real how good this game looks.
Like, good luck. Basically, picture it like this. You know how, like, in the Kingdom Hearts games, they'd have, like, those really, like, high-quality cutscenes, like, usually, like, in the beginning or end of the games, thinking, like, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Basically, imagine that, but that's how it looks when you play.
It is
and that's essentially
unbelievable.
What this was. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. If, like, this is gonna be something that definitely is a big selling point for people to get Xboxes in the future.
Yeah, and it's going to take advantage of the new hardware. That's the big thing, is it's definitely going to be, obviously Xbox has their way of like, the streaming to old consoles and all that stuff, so you don't have to worry about upgrading, but this on the next gen consoles is going to look absolutely unreal.
It's going to be maddening, and not just even for like the looks, but just like that whole setting. Them fighting, or I guess like hunting, whatever the fuck that giant monstrosity was, and just like the stormy, bleak setting, it gave me like shivers, but also excited me. I was like, oh, I want to dive into that.
The next one is one that really excites me off of the recent, entry into the Halo universe, and that's the Halo TV show. And I'm digging all of these, games becoming TV shows. Like, we have The Witcher, that was been a massive success so far. We've had Arcane that just released, and that is beyond good. I just finished it the other night. Fuck me, that's so good. I'm addicted to it. Then you have Last of Us coming, yeah, exactly, on HBO, I believe.
Yes.
And now we have Halo. Like, I am very happy to see all of these games becoming other, branching out and getting more people into these universes.
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like games being like having like TV adaptations as opposed to movie ones. Now, don't get me wrong, some video game franchises can have like a decent or good movie adaptation, but for the most part, they haven't go too well. I'm looking at you, Resident Evil franchise. I'm still burned on that. But well, I guess like the newer one is supposed to be much better though. Thank God. But a TV adaptation with some of like these games, like how long they've been around, how much story they have to offer, it pays off much more to do like a TV adaptation for it, because you're able to stretch it out, give so much more story with it as opposed to trying to squeeze a bunch of stuff into like a 2-hour time frame.
Yeah. Next up, Elden Ring showed us more stuff, and honestly, I was very disappointed by this. I don't know about you, but it was just a cinematic, and I was like, "Give us gameplay, you cowards! Like, what are we doing here?"
Yeah, I mean, to be like, it's kind of weird that now they're giving us like a lore cinematic trailer when we've already had like a bunch of like looks at gameplay already. It's like they kind of like did the order in reverse. It should have been some of this first, and then showing off a bunch of like the gameplay and everything. The gameplay looks great from what I've seen so far, but like to now do like a now I did like the trailer, but it's like it does. I'm already hyped for Elden Ring, but this didn't like raise it. It didn't lower it. It just kind of like kept it at the same.
Yeah. Next up was Breath of the Hedgehog, Sonic Frontiers, and at this point, like, we've had so many Breath of the Wild. I'm excited because I wanted an open world Sonic game. Like, I think this is going to be fun, but it's very obvious what the inspiration for this game was. So
yeah, I would say like when Breath of the Wild came out, it definitely like inspired a whole new trend of games in terms of like, you know, linear franchises like Sonic and Kirby, because there's gonna be Kirby Breath of the Wild coming out too. So it's just it's definitely a new style of game. It's kind of like when people said like all these battle royale games were copying like PUBG or Fortnite, stuff like that. It's the same thing, but I'm all for it. I'm all for like a new style of Sonic game.
Yeah, Sonic's formula has been getting stale, so I'm looking forward to that.
Stale, and they just can't seem to find like, it's like they can't seem to find Sonic's identity game. There's such like, it has such a cult following. It's such a beloved franchise, but when it comes to the games, they just can't seem to find their footing on what they want a Sonic game to be.
Yeah. Next was Slitterhead, the new horror game. It was weird. I thought it was going to be Silent Hill. I was very disappointed it was not Silent Hill, especially with how much they fucking referenced Silent Hill throughout this entire thing. And I'm convinced, okay, there was a whole segment, I don't remember what the game award they were announcing was, but it was Hideo Kojima at the start, and then it was Guillermo del Toro at the end. And then he even said, he was like, "Oh, I hope we get another one of those Silent Hill games." And I was like, "There's no shot that Kojima's not working on Silent Hill now."
Yeah, he was basically, it was like, Silent Hill games are pretty good. I hope we get another one of those sometimes. Anyway,
like, you can't throw Kojima in front of that and then follow it up with, "I hope we get another Silent Hill," like we're getting Silent Hill from Kojima at this point. I'm convinced. But Slitterhead looks weird. I don't really know if it's my style.
It's hard to say like what kind of horror game it's gonna be. Is it gonna be like an action horror game? Because it looked like there was some little bit of action bits there, like towards the end. Is it a survival horror? I don't know.
Yeah,
but I'll be keeping an eye on it. I mean, it seems interesting enough to at least keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Next up,
Lord of the Rings Golem, and this is a game I'm excited for. I honestly, I'm excited for this. I think it'll be fun, like a stealth style game. The problem I'm having with it, the art style's weird. Golem looks weird, okay?
Golem looks like, I think it's supposed to be like a Golem backstory, so maybe like a slightly younger Golem, but it's still a very odd looking one when you're so used to the movie version.
Yeah, and the voice acting is not what I want. Like, it doesn't sound like Golem and Schmeagol from the movies, which everybody knows. And they've done that in games before. Like, I just think it's weird. And it's going to be like, very disorienting playing that game.
Like, it's not hard to get Golem's voice. It's precious.
Yeah, like, it didn't even sound... like, if you... It basically imitates Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. You have Golem, right? And I don't know why they went with a different route. It's so weird. It's gonna throw me off the entire time I play that game.
Yeah. Next up,
Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. We've
got
seen this
a
before,
story
and
trailer.
I'm so excited for this game.
Same. It's just it looks so just because it's so different from the usual Borderlands Ryan with all like with the actual like magic powers and everything. The only aspect of magic you've gotten so far is when you play as a siren in the Borderlands games. But this is just that to 11.
I think it's a great way for them to continue making Borderlands games without it being the same thing over and over and over.
Right. I feel like it's gonna be like a really enjoyable breath of fresh air to the franchise.
Just to change enough that like it feels fresh but is the same, you know? Like it's
Yeah,
familiar but different.
exactly.
Among Us VR, I thought this was hilarious. Like
That's
honestly,
same.
that'd be kind of terrifying getting killed by the imposter in VR, but that's really all I have to say on that subject.
I just loved the trailer because like I was just like looking at it and I see the art style and I'm thinking that's like one of those like Rick and Morty style games or
Yeah.
something like that. And as soon as you turn around and you just see a fucking imposter just charging at you and you hear the buzzer and I'm just like, oh my god, they did it.
Star Trek Resurgence. I don't really have a lot to say about this. I've never been a big Star Trek guy, but it's like a Telltale game style from what I can tell.
Yeah. Now I will say it's definitely a vast like different from like the usual cell shaded style that Telltale Games has done. I mean, it's not from Telltale Games, but it's a studio made up of like people from Telltale. But still, it looks very different visually, but very nice. But I've never been one to really dive into Telltale style games.
Now this next one actually looks really interesting. It looks very pretty. It's from the Embark Studios, former Dice and Battlefield work developers, and it's Arc Raiders. And this looks weird, but it looks
Yeah,
cool and fun.
yeah, I know it. It looks like a vast open world type thing. You go around like you have your like crew or everything like that, and you're just taking on these like waves of like I guess robots and stuff that are just like falling from the sky or something. It looks very interesting, and those encounters looked fun as hell.
Yes.
It looks like it kind of reminds me if like it looks like a modern Monster Hunter, except the monsters are machines.
Yeah, I could definitely get those vibes. It just, I don't know. The movement looked fun. The gameplay looked. I'm excited to see what happens with it. I think it looks super cool.
Yeah.
Next up, we got another trailer for Matrix Resurrections, but we also got like it's what I would describe as a tech demo for Unreal Engine 5, and it shows off the unbelievable graphics that you get from it, and it's free. You can go download it on next gen systems. I played it, and fucking A, dude, it is unreal how good this game looks.
Unreal Engine.
Yeah, like it's crazy. It's crazy how good the graphics are. And then it's like a 20 minute segment that you play, and then you can explore the whole world of New York that they built in the engine. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's definitely puts into perspective all those like Unreal Engine projects people do of like, oh, here's Mario in Unreal Engine, here's Pokemon in Unreal Engine. Well, now here's what Unreal Engine can really look like on consoles. Next up,
Rumbleverse from Epic. It looks so dumb.
it, it looks so, but I've seen like gameplay. It looks so dumb, but at the same time, it's like I think I would enjoy it just because it's such a different battle royale game. You know, it's not a shooter or anything. You're not picking up weapons or anything. There are weapons you pick up, they're just not guns. And it plus it's wrestling. I love wrestling, so this will probably be something I'll pick up when it comes out. It just looks like wild, wacky fun.
Yes. I'm gonna speed run through a couple of these here because I think a lot of these were from the pre-show. We had The Expanse. I didn't watch the pre-show, so I can't talk about it, but it's a Telltale series. Tunic is coming on March 16th, and that is like a Legend of Zelda clone that actually looks rather fun, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. Homeworld 3
could be on Game Pass too.
Could be on Game Pass. I'm looking forward to that game. It looks interesting. Crossfire X was shown off. I'm not sure what to think about Crossfire X. It looked interesting.
Yes.
It just looked like another shooter, though, so I'm not too sure what to think of it. This one I want to stop and talk about because this one kind of excites me, and that is Nightingale.
excited to piss me off because it's on PC and I don't have one.
I don't plan to play it on PC, but I'm hoping it'll eventually make the jump to consoles because it looks very interesting. It looks like a fantasy No Man's Sky where you go through these portals and there's all these different worlds that you can explore, and it's like a survival crafting game. It looks very, very cool.
Yeah, it looked very cool. I like the art style and visuals of it. Definitely a game like if it were coming to consoles day one, I'd probably be picking it up straight away.
Yeah. PUBG went free to play. We're finally getting Cuphead DLC after however many fucking years that's been.
Right, like I get with COVID, like pushing stuff back, and you know how much time actually goes into anything Cuphead related. But goddamn, June 30th, 2022. So finally, like next summer is when we'll be getting this DLC.
We got the second trailer. Well, we got the first trailer for Sonic 2. And I'm excited. Yeah, that's all there is. I'm excited.
Jim Carrey prior to that announcement was entertaining as hell.
He's such an interesting individual.
Don't put it in the grinder. He very much is.
Thirsty Suitors.
Is Thirsty Suitors.
I don't know. It must have been in the pre-show.
This had to been pre-game.
Dune Spice Wars is also coming. It's a new strategy game. And that is it for the announcements, actually, is we finally got to the bottom of this list.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think there was as many big hitters as what Keighley was kind of hyping up prior to this thing.
It definitely felt overhyped for the most part. And I don't think we're like alone in saying that, because I was seeing like some prediction videos. People were like putting out some big predictions of what we could have seen.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. I thought some of the announcements were cool, but I just thought ultimately it was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, there wasn't like that one big announcement that really blew my mind. Now I get it, it's the Game Awards, so they don't typically ever want to go like super huge because they want people focusing more so on the rewards than the announcements. But like I was kind of expecting like at least that one big reveal or something to really get me out of my seat.
Yeah. My final thing to wrap up this episode, all right? Give your final thoughts on the Game Awards this year. And then, what is your personal game of the year?
Ooh. So my final thoughts on the Game Awards, like obviously like a lot of our picks didn't necessarily like win what we were expecting, and we were definitely throwing some curveballs. But like when I really like look through each category and seeing like who won everything, and start to think about it, I can kind of like get the justification behind like some of these winners. Because obviously some of the ones that really like threw me off are of course games that I've never played, so I shouldn't be too surprised on that. And my personal game of the year, oh boy, this is a hard one. Because now I think for me it comes down between two games. And one of them I'm playing currently right now. So for me it's between like Deathloop and Guardians. Because Deathloop was just such like a new, unique experience. The character performances and gameplay is absolutely fascinating. The music, how it can go from like, slow and like sort of stealthily to how it picks up as soon as like your cover's blown or anything like that. Absolutely love that. But Guardians of the Galaxy is just such a well done narrative driven experience. You really actually feel connected to each of the Guardians and like the characters they run into, trying to like talk your way through different situations to see like what kind of outcomes you'll get. And the combat is actually very much enjoyable, with you as Star-Lord and commanding everyone, and everyone having their own different abilities, and really just causing a whole bunch of mayhem. My probably favorite part about the combat is you can call like a huddle for everyone, and you basically try to give everyone a pep talk, and depending on how it goes, either everybody gets buffed or just you. and then some copyrighted music starts playing, and it's funny because it's not like super hype like fighting music. like I just had a moment where like I did that, and then fucking Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up started playing while I was fighting for my life. So like it's very charming. The comedy's there. You love the character. So for me, it's between those two. Like I could pick one, but I'd drift back towards the other. Say like I can't choose, man.
So for me, the Game Awards, I love the awards segments. That's what I like about it. And I appreciate the announcements. However, these things drag so long. It really drags because of the spacing between the big announcements. They have a lot of ads, and I understand you need those ads. You need that money to make this event happen. I get that, right?
Yeah.
But between the announcements, the actual awards, and some of the awards that just kind of like they have acting bits involved in them, the announcements with the acting bits, then the performances. Like I appreciate the performances, that's fine, but there needs to be something that kind of speeds this process up, because ultimately, like by the end of it, I'm losing interest.
By the end of it, I'm losing consciousness because good lord, I was starting to drift asleep towards the end of there. I was struggling.
Yeah, they need to do something to streamline it a little bit. But ultimately, I enjoy watching it every year. Every year we sit down and we fucking text back and forth the whole damn time while we're watching it. But I don't know. They just need to speed up this fucking process a little bit. But in terms of go ahead.
They either need to speed it up or like just make it like a little bit earlier in the day, so that way I don't feel like I'm staying up all throughout the night.
That might help.
Yeah.
But in terms of my personal game of the year, it gets interesting. Okay, because when Deathloop dropped, I was like, it's Deathloop. It's gonna be Deathloop 100%. It's fantastic. It's so unique. But then time went on, and I got Forza 5 Horizon.
Right.
And that, I will say with 100% certainty, is my favorite game this year. That is my game of the year. It's so fun. It's a game that I'm still going back to and playing, even though I've beaten it. I'm playing it constantly, getting new cars, exploring the map, just doing all the stuff that is built into the game. I love the soundtrack. I love the audio. I love the gameplay. It's fantastic. But my very, very close runner-up, and I know it's not quite, it didn't make the cut for this year's Game of the Year awards, okay? And it's fucking Halo Infinite, dude. It's so good. It's visually, it's beautiful. The delay was definitely worth it because it looks so good. The story's interesting. As someone who's never played Halo, I'm invested in it. You get the story, you get all the side stuff that you can do, collectibles and stuff like that. And then you got the multiplayer on top of it, which I'm just freaking addicted to. I play so much Halo multiplayer. It's just, it's a fantastic package. I don't think it's as fun and awesome, and it's not going to hit as hard for everybody. Like if you're a fan of Call of Duty, you might not like Halo as much because it's a very different style of shooter. But I think for me, Forza just hit way harder in terms of being just that perfect combination of everything.
Yeah, and I completely get that. Now, the one thing I wish like we could find out, and this would be like if I had an Xbox already at hand, is like I wonder if our answers would change if we like played some of the games that were like that we thought would be like Game of the Year contending games, and if our answers were changed. Like, would my answer change if I played Forza, and would your answer change if you played games like Guardians of the Galaxy or Metroid Dread, anything like that?
Yeah, it could have helped the cause. It could have changed and swayed us one direction or the other. But I think that's part of the fun of it, is just like seeing everybody's different takes, and like because like It Takes Two winning Game of the Year was kind of just like, wow, I didn't know that game was that well received.
Yeah, and that's mainly because like me and you, we personally like haven't played that game yet, so that's why part of the reason why it caught us so off guard.
Yep. But that's gonna wrap it up for this week, guys, and thank you all for entering the chat with us. Like I said, we are on podcast services and on YouTube, so make sure you go sub there. Leave your comments below on what your personal game of the year was, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.